to me, it's much easier for a technology company to build a car than it is for an automaker to become a technology.
So true.
Exactly right.
So a new Sandy Munro interview dropped on Autoline. It covers Cybertruck, but it also covers the competition in China. And there's some really awesome nuggets in this interview. I've gone through and pulled out the best moments. The link is in the description if you would prefer to watch the entire thing. But let's go ahead and get started.
The Cybertruck to me, and I realize that this is going to sound goofy, but the Cybertruck to me is the BMW i3 of our time. The BMW i3, I was totally blown away with. New materials, carbon fiber, new welding techniques, new casting materials, so that you could actually weld a casting to an extrusion. I mean, holy shit, onsets. All these wonderful new just a hideous car, but actually,
that's funny because I went.
Well, you know, some might say the same thing about the Cybertruck.
Again, it was when I was watching the videos of the Cybertruck, and the point you made. I was wondering, okay, so how far behind are the legacy automakers? Are they two cycles behind? 3, 1?
I can't tell you, but I know one thing for sure: taking 48 volts and retroing it into something else. That would not happen at a legacy auto manufacturer, and I don't think it's going to happen at Tesla either. If they're going to do something on the 3, it would have to be a new 3.
They'd have to redo the entire car.
There's so many different things.
All the components change, right? All the electrical components change.
Everything goes to 48 volts. Now you can put, you can put little transformers and whatever, but at the end of the day, you'd really want to do it right the first time, and you wouldn't want to have anything that, well, it's a 12 volt camera, so we're just gonna, we'll put a little box in between that and the 48 volts, and we'll down come in it. No, that just isn't. That's not.
Adding boxes seems to defeat the
adding
purpose.
Boxes is what Tesla doesn't do.
Right.
They get rid of boxes.
And
Tesla is at least 8 years ahead of everybody else on 48 volts. And the reason for that is because nobody's looked at it. It's always been the same thing. When I was at Ford 35 years ago, we were trying to get people to go to 48, 42 then, but 48 volts. And guess what? Oh, that'll never work. There are no suppliers. Well, there are suppliers, but they didn't want to use them because we got a long-term contract with Fred here, and he gives us a good price. And so that's what was the killer there. Nobody wanted to look at weight reduction. What do you need? We're putting big V8s in these things. We don't. So at the end of the day, you're looking at a really huge mindset differential. And by the way, that 48 also helps something else. Oh yeah, steer by wire.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I'm telling you what, 48 volts, the Ethernet, steer by wire, and rear steer. Okay, so I brought the Lightning with me, and I drove the Cybertruck for about 2.5 hours. You can get it doesn't take long to get happy about a car that usually takes like the same radius as the Queen Mary to turn, and all of a sudden now, it wakes you up because it cuts in so quickly. And I noticed that when today I drove, like I say, I drove the Lightning down, and the turning radius is dramatic when you're in the
because the Cybertruck isn't it about the same length as an F-50?
It is. It's exactly.
I haven't seen one in the flesh, so
the rear wheel,
the rear wheel,
the rear was turned, right?
But it's only like
Silverado
10 degrees.
EVs got that too. Hummer EVs got that too. A lot of cars have got rear steering.
That's great, but I've put this tweet on screen to remind everyone that Ford, and many other legacy automakers are pulling back on EVs. 50% have opted out of selling EVs in 2024 at certain dealerships. So yeah, steer by wire, that's great. There's going to be a lot of copycats, but if you're not, producing these EVs at scale, Tesla's going to take your lunch. Check this out. Tesla will now be producing the Cybertruck in Giga, Mexico. So before we continue watching, just remember, Tesla is taking over the highest margin market. And sure, they've got steer by wire and their other trucks and stuff, but they've got the unions pulling them down. They're tied to their suppliers. If you can't make these things profitably, BYD's coming into the US, whether they have tariffs or not.
That Tesla sent out, here's how to design for 48 volts. And we copied down everything. We have the manual, and then we have every one of the different supplemental
Mhm,
thingies, all the
mhm.
addendums and whatnot. We've got it, and it's a fairly thick package if you print it, and it's got everything you need to know. When I said I thought they're about 8 years behind, it should be 10 years because it would take 2 years to write that book.
Just to read it.
And on the line, I mean, they're uncoiling it over here,
Mhm.
and it comes out, and I see it dip down, and it comes back up, and it goes into this. What are you doing there? Because I don't recognize that machine, and I know most of the machines that you use in a stamping line. That one, I don't know what it is. And so what they're doing is they're work hardening the steel,
Mhm.
and it comes together, and it's martensitic.
It seems like an awful lot of work to do for a niche product. Like they
You
don't,
want to have machine gun bullets bounce off? martensite. You
yeah,
want to have it go through like butter? Stay with austenite. I
Right.
mean, it's
but they've invested a lot to do this.
well,
Well,
it all boils down to Elon's son, right? He said, if this is a future vehicle, how come it doesn't look like the future?
But to me, it doesn't seem that complicated. I mean, if you're unrolling the coil, right, and you're doing the processing right there, and they laser cut the blanks, or what do they do?
Yeah,
They laser cut them, then they form them. Done.
Yeah.
Yeah, and quite frankly,
No
the
paint?
forming, no paint, and
Mhm.
that's they do have paint in other areas, but the big thing for me was the forming. How do I bend that stuff without bruising it? And they've got a machine that Trump built, and they call it air bending. It looks like a normal brake, but they've got something that's helping it out so that you don't get a bruise.
So when you say bruise, I mean you're saying you want a clean bend without
want a
any
clean-
ripples and stuff.
if you bend normal material in a brake, it goes down, and you have a line. Okay, it's a if you put your fingers on it and rub it,
Yeah.
you can feel that
It's like a crease.
it's a crease, but you can feel that there's little broken
Uneven?
parts
Oh,
of
got it. Okay.
of steel there. With this stuff, there's nothing. So I put my hands all over this stuff, and I'm, how do they do that? And they showed me the machine. So it comes rolling out. It gets it goes through that process, and then to make it into work hardened austenite martensite, and then it goes in a machine and and it's done, and it's fast, and it's easy, and it's all robotic.
So
I
So
mean,
that's
is
the thing
exactly-
about this. I was just say, I mean, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, or whatever, I would not have said Tesla is going to be a leader in manufacturing process. And like the people we talk about the Tesla production system, the stuff you're talking about says that they are becoming that they're ahead in a lot of manufacturing process stuff.
they spend an awful lot of money, a tremendous amount of money on R&D for manufacturing and material science. And if you don't invest in material science, and you don't invest in manufacturing, and you don't invest in software, you are screwed. You're not going to win. You can't win. I don't care about wow, look at that dazzling paint. Or let's put little LEDs that change color all the time. That, to me, is just bullshit.
So I've attached the R&D development spending at big mega cap companies, and you can see how low Tesla is compared to other mega caps. But there's no automotive companies on this chart, and Toyota actually spends about $10 billion a year in R&D. That would rank them about third after Nvidia. But Tesla's only at 3.7 billion. So what exactly is Tesla, or Toyota, I mean, spending all of their money on if they're not ramping EVs at the minute? And if we move to this next data point, you can see Tesla's well positioned in selling, general, and administrative expenses per employee. They rank about 7 out of 35 or so automotive companies in that efficiency. But you see BYD is number one, $6,000 per employee. That's very low. Tesla's at $35,000. But if you look all the way to the right at gross profit per employee, Tesla $148,000 per employee, whereas BYD is only $27,000. So Tesla is 6 times more profitable per employee than BYD. We need to keep this in mind as this conversation goes along.
BYD seems like a monster. I've said if they keep this rate of growth going, sometime in the next decade they'll be the biggest car company in the world.
That's my prediction as well. And when I talked to excuse me, when I talked to Elon Musk, I said, I think that Tesla's going to be a rock solid second, but I think BYD is going to be in first. And he said, you're probably right. And he doesn't mince words.
But
you
here's
know,
my
he's a
question then.
scientist,
Is
kind of.
BYD technically where Tesla is? Is it, software defined? Is it centralized zonal computing? Is it Ethernet? Is it gigacastings? Is it all that kind of stuff?
It is not.
No.
But they have invested in expansion. So over the last 2 years, they're entered like 60 markets,
Right.
and they have the Seal, they have the UN Plus, they have the
Dolphin.
Dolphin, and then the Seagull, all under $30,000. So we're exporting to Europe or the United States eventually, or North America, for those products. It'll take some time because the BYD brand, creating awareness, education, and trust. The reason it makes so much sense for these Chinese brands to enter Mexico, either to produce, is not just because entry into North America. It's also because they can sell domestically into Latin America and South America at that $20,000 price point. So,
Well, I think, and this is a moment when I'll bring up the word tariffs, because I mean, there was just a story this morning that the Biden administration, I can't remember who wrote it, but somebody had a story. The Biden administration is looking at raising the tariffs on Chinese vehicles. I can't remember, what is it now, like 20%?
25.
27 and a half. So it's
Okay,
two and
so
a
that's
half
not
for
high enough,
everything,
apparently.
and then 25 for Chinese.
And the European Union is growling about dumping and whatnot, and unfair trade. I mean, what is a company like BYD? I mean, it's kind of like Back to the Future, right? This is what the Japanese were in the 1980s.
Exactly right.
So what happens next?
Well, what happened with the Japanese? We rolled over and let them in. And why was that? Because nobody in North America could give the consumer what they wanted. They wanted a small car. It had to be fuel efficient, and they wanted high quality. Well, buy a XYZ car.
Yeah.
It's made in America. Wave the flag. It's a made in America. Wave the flag. It's made. And it didn't work out. So we put tariffs on it. We did this, we did that. Eventually, somebody said, well, because they still bought them. And quite frankly, if they're coming in from China, labor rates in China are a whole lot lower than they are anywhere.
So I've pulled this on screen to put this whole debacle into perspective. Right now, out of the best-selling electric vehicles in China, on this list is 8 BYD vehicles. Now, that's impressive, but what's also impressive is Tesla's number 1 with the Model Y as a best-selling vehicle, and it starts at $37,000. The number 2 vehicle, the BYD Seagull, starts at $10,000. So it's extremely impressive that the Model Y is the best-selling vehicle when it's 3.7 times as expensive as the next vehicle. So yeah, I think BYD will find their way into the United States because they offer extremely cheap vehicles. But don't forget that even if they sell the most EVs in the future, that doesn't mean they're going to make the most money. Apple doesn't sell the most phones, but they make the majority of the money in the smartphone sector. So now we turn to Legacy Auto and ask, how are they going to get back on track?
No, this has to be revolutionary. And quite frankly, the biggest changes that have to happen are corporate changes. The corporate procedures, all the corporate culture, all that stuff has to change. You can't have it anymore. It changed
Can you
slowly.
change corporate culture?
It's the toughest thing on the planet to do. And usually
That's why
what
I'm
winds up
asking.
happening-
I mean, you're almost better just blowing up a company and starting a new one.
Maybe, but remember, we used to have all the corporations used to build their own stuff. They made their own seats. They made their own instrument panels. They did all this stuff. Slowly, the consultants came in and, oh, that should be offshore. Oh, you should give that away. Oh, look at how much we saved here. Oh, look at how much we saved there.
The UAW played a big role in that.
And
it
they
was
did.
all of a sudden way cheaper to
Uh-huh.
buy from suppliers. And that's something that Sean Fain at the UAW has never fessed up to. They're part of the problem.
Hey, you know what?
And I'm not against these people getting money, but it goes beyond the money. It's work rules, it's lines of demarcation, it's battles in the factory, and all that kind of stuff.
Telling the company what they're going to do from,
Why did they agree to that?
I have any idea, but I do remember for 2 years. So I came from the machine tool industry initially. I was a tool maker. Then later on, I worked my way into engineering and went to school and stuff like that. At 27, I was a chief engineer of Valiant Machine Tool, and that was a big place, the biggest machine tool company privately held machine tool company in North America. And I'm telling you what, when when the union made the rule that they didn't want any robots, we were in the tank. I mean, it's the only time that we were. So what do? We automated. I think it was a typewriter thing. We did. We were working. We got a great big giant contract for the Karma River project in Russia. I mean, we were doing anything to just keep the doors open. And why? Well, the union says we don't want to have any robots.
To me, it's much easier for a technology company to build a car than it is for an automaker to
So
become a
true.
technology.
So true.
Exactly.
I love that quote. It's much easier for a technology company to build a car than it is for a car company to become a technology company. Look, BYD, are they a threat to automotive sales, to hardware sales, to beating Tesla, selling as many units and volumes? Yes, they are a threat. They probably will sell more volumes, as Elon literally agreed with Sandy on. But do they have Optimus Robot? Do they have FSD? Are they growing their energy storage sales at 50% a year? No. And all three of those things could be bigger than automotive, literally. So, are they going to move into the US despite tariffs? Yes. But $25,000 Tesla unveiled next year, going to cement Tesla's growth story in automotive for many years to come. And FSD might even just reshape the whole way we look at car ownership. So, subscribe to the channel. Have a happy holiday. Merry Christmas Eve. See you guys soon.